Greetings, everybody. This is Christopher Messina coming at you from the formerly sunny beaches in the last free state in America, Florida. We hope the sun will return, but for now it's a little damp, but it's okay. We've got a bucket and a new hole in the roof. Joining me in the studio today is Brandon Gresham, who is the host of the I Came with Fire podcast, active duty Air Force, and a range of other things aside from being a scholar and a gentleman. Brandon, thank you for taking the time to come on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate that.
Been a while. What's up? Kick us off. Kick
Yeah.
us off. What's top of the mind today, 28th of March, 2024?
Yeah. So I will amend a little bit of your intro for me. I recently got out of the Air Force in
Ah,
February. So now I'm a retired guy. So doing something
congrats.
different now. Thank you. Doing the old cybersecurity thing and the podcast. It's weird times like we were texting each other about the other day. And I think it gets weirder every day. And we're what? Almost 4 months into 2024,
Oh,
and there's
madness.
so much time left for things to get weirder, don't you think?
And they're going to get worse and worse and worse. But that
Absolutely.
is the nature of world wars. Is they don't improve until they get a lot worse for a very long time. And
You're
half of
right.
our, I think, pardon me, half of our political class is not even aware of kind of where we are at this
Yeah,
stage of world history. And they're all in a lot of denial. And they're all
very
worried about
much.
I wouldn't go into Rafa if I were you. I really wouldn't really fucking worry about Rafa. That's the
Yeah,
least of our problems right now. But yeah,
yeah.
it is indeed strange times, and I know that we've spoken a few times about the fight for Western civilization that the Israelis are
Mhm.
currently leading the charge for which we
Yeah,
thank them. But there are so many weird things. For example, I gotta tell you, I saw an accident on the Francis Scott Key Bridge. I really
yeah.
didn't think that much more about it until some clever minds began to tell me maybe you should think about it.
Yeah, definitely. What did it happen at like 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern Standard Time? I was getting up to work out before work at like 4 a.m. here in California. And I saw it and I was like, my first thought, right? I think just being a millennial and experiencing 9/11 is my first thought is, holy shit, it's another
Right.
terrorist attack, right? Especially Baltimore, so close to Washington, D.C. And then I'm like, okay, well, a ship crashed into this bridge, which coincidentally went down like a set of Tinker Toys,
Oh my
right? Which
God,
is it's
watching that
insane.
collapse made me terrified for every bridge
I
it was
know
been on.
it
That's
is. Think
all. That's what it took was
I
one
know.
tanker into a pylon.
Right. And it's trolling out into the Chesapeake Bay, right? So it's not like it's moving really fast. And it is a 700 foot cargo ship, right?
Yeah,
But I just don't feel like massive bridges like that should just collapse like that. And so just the infrastructure in the United States needs some work, right? But the initial thought is, like I said, was, oh, it's a terrorist attack. And then everybody, said, no, the ship lost power, all this stuff. And then we learned that even if these ships lost power, they don't lose steering. It's like a separate system, so why did it crash? At the very least, it's incompetence. But
deep
the one thing
incompetence,
I've, right,
sweeping incompetence.
sweeping incompetence. But the one thing I think is really weird, okay, and having, I was a military police officer in the in the Air Force, and I made the joke with someone else yesterday that I have seen investigations into whose unaccounted for round was found in a parking lot on base. Then this investigation at the early wee hours of the morning, determining that this wasn't some sort of terrorist attack, whether it was a cyber attack on this ship
Right.
or what, right? So I think it's a little weird that immediately we're coming out and saying, nope, user error, sorry, we'll get it fixed, right? And then Pete Buttigieg, I like to say Pete Booty Juice, right, gets on the air and talks about racism and bridges and overpasses, and as if that somehow is going to fix the problem. We're all sick of the
I
identity
can't even
politics, I think.
listen to Buttigieg, whose sole achievement during the Trump
Hmm.
years was he was the mayor of one of three cities in the
Hmm.
whole country that went backwards economically on his watch.
Right.
That's an impressive achievement. A
It is.
rising tide lifts all boats. But Pete Buttigieg, the fake veteran and the McKinsey scholar,
Yeah.
managed to
Right.
oversee a city that went backwards. It's pretty impressive.
It is.
How
It
did he
is.
drag racism? I mean, they drag racism to anything, of course, but
Hmm.
how particularly did Pete Buttigieg think that this was racist in nature?
He was making a comment essentially about how a bus in New York, if it hit an underpass full of Black and Puerto Rican kids, that essentially it's a racist issue because it wasn't taken into account with the neighborhood that they live in and all this stuff, and essentially trying to equate it to the problems with infrastructure and because they can't get funding, and there's these communities are for people of color, and so they're left behind and all this stuff. So it was essentially the idea, I suppose.
Did he bring up the idea that perhaps if the American taxpayer were not forced to send $60 million to Pakistan for gender education, that maybe that
Hmm.
money would be available to fix infrastructure at home? Did he bring that up in his
He
remarks?
didn't. He
That
also
didn't come
didn't.
up?
Nope, didn't also bring up all of the money in this new spending bill for Egyptian college students. I don't know what the point is for these Egyptian college students. Perhaps they're really going to get to the bottom of how the pyramids were built. If that's the goal, I'm okay with it, but I don't think it is, you know.
I think the answer they're going to find out is one stone at a time.
That's, that's a good
I'm guessing,
answer.
I'm
Uh,
spitballing. And what do
yeah,
I know?
I don't know. That's a good question.
This is one new
Maybe.
fascinating line item that I have not had a chance to raise my blood pressure over. What is this new nonsense about funding Egyptian college students?
Yes, so the new spending bill that they just came out with, obviously more money for Ukraine, but part of it also has pork in it for Egyptian college students, essentially funding their college career. So not sure what the point is or how that's supposed to help Americans, but that is in there. So
Well, I'm going to say that if you've seen any pictures or videotape of the wall the Egyptians built between the Gaza Strip and Egypt, I want to hire them to come build our wall on the southern border. Man,
someone needs to.
you couldn't get
Mm-mm.
a platoon through that wall. That
Right.
wall works.
It's
That's
crazy.
priceless.
The wall is one of the oldest pieces of technology, and it's worked for a very long time.
Yeah,
So when somebody tries to sell me on the it's not going to work, I don't buy it.
I've seen
So
walls work pretty well. They work really
yeah.
well if they're really tall. Remember, actually, very funny. One of my least favorite Austrians, when Arnold Schwarzenegger, son of a Nazi who during the Wuhan pandemic said, "Screw your freedom." So going right
Hmm.
back to genealogical type, I suppose. Um,
Fascism.
when he first moved to the U.S., I remember
Hmm.
seeing this interview years ago. He got a job as like a bricklayer, right? He's trying to make a
Hmm.
living while he pursues his dreams, right? And so he's
Got you.
hired. He and a friend are hired to build a wall around a house in California. And in true Austrian fashion, to make sure the wall works, they embed broken glass all along the top of the wall. So if you try to climb on the wall, you will get your hand shredded and you will decline to try to invade said house. Of course, it being
Ah.
America, the homeowner came along and was horrified. He's like, "You got to take all that out." He's like, "Well, why?" "Well, if someone tries to climb over the wall and cuts themselves, they're going to
Hmm.
sue me." And Arnold got his first taste of American insanity. He's like, "But isn't the point that they shouldn't be on your wall?" Like in the
Correct.
first, like they're not supposed to be there.
Yeah,
And the glass kind of drives that point home. Not
definitely.
America, you got to build a
That's
wall that
funny.
people can climb over.
I've never heard that story before. That's
So
pretty good.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah. So well, you're closer to the wall than I am, being in California. What do you hear, or what
definitely.
should be a wall?
Hmm.
What are your thoughts on the 800,000 military-aged men from 20 countries on the terrorist watch list that
Hmm.
have wandered blithely across the border under Biden's failure to watch?
Yeah. That, I have a lot of thoughts about it, obviously. I was recently talking to somebody randomly, a stranger I don't know, and we just kind of got on the topic of it. And she said to me, she goes, "How does it affect your everyday life?" And I said, if you don't think that all of these extra people coming into our country and now being given all of this money and opportunity to be a part of our society without actually signing on to being an American isn't going to affect your everyday life at some point or the other, right? You're crazy. Here we are in California where there's an insane amount of taxes, right? They spend, I think the only state that spends more money on homelessness than California is New York. I'm pretty
Yep.
sure.
Yep.
And there, I live outside of Sacramento. Okay, so capital of California, not that far from San
So
Francisco.
you're
Go
right
there.
by the pulsating heart of the
I'm
evil.
right by it, right? So all I got to do is hop on I-5 or Highway 80. And if I really want to go take a tour of the tent cities that are out here in California, and they are aplenty, right?
Yep.
So how does it affect my everyday life? No, we have all these people who are potentially homeless. We see these crimes that happen. We have enough criminals in this country. I don't need to import them anymore, right? And then the video I saw yesterday at Charles de Gaulle Airport in France, where a group of immigrants basically were putting up a fight with the French police to as they tried to deport somebody.
Right.
And more shit like that is going to happen.
Yep.
This is actually not a unique scenario as well. You know, you could go back in time and look at all these different instances of civilizations dealing with this problem. Aristotle made the comment about how the preferred company of a tyrant is the non-citizen. How ironic, how accurate Aristotle was back in the day. Here we
Yep.
are in 2024, um, reliving his experience and his thought processes, right? So,
You must be a
I
white supremacist MAGA Republican climate denier quoting Aristotle like that.
yeah, I gotta watch it. You know, Greek philosophy. We're bordering
That's
on
tough.
fascism
That's
right
really
now.
tough stuff. If that's bad. He was a he he prized logic, rigor of thought, and civic debate. All those
Those are
things are
dangerous
absolutely
things.
evil. That's
Yeah.
horrible white supremacy right there.
Christopher, you gotta be careful with me, okay? As with your American flag in the background, it's scary times, messy
It's
times, right?
very,
And
very messy times.
very messy times.
It's
But
madness.
it is, and it's scary. My wife and I, we are pro Second Amendment, and I think it's a great time to increase your involvement in the Second Amendment. I'll just put it that way, right?
Yeah.
And it'd be one thing if we had a process for these people trying to come in here who are actually seeking asylum, and
And
but
we
there's
do
not.
have a process. It's called
We
legal
use
immigration.
Sure, right.
But it's no fun if you just
No,
want to
it's
stroll across the border.
Well, and the thing is, I do think that our legal immigration process is a little wonky. But the thing is there's no way to process all these people coming in, and Mexico, president of Mexico, making statements about how they're not going to allow people being deported back in to Mexico. And I know that not all of these people coming to the United States are from Mexico, but they are coming through your country into our
Yes,
country. So
they are.
listen here, right? There's this buffer zone here where you're not participating in this as well. So it just that makes me
And
laugh.
amazingly, Trump had the Mexicans keeping all these people on their side of the border.
Yeah. It
Not,
just
apparently it's possible to do if one isn't a
Yeah.
doormat that rolls over and grabs one's ankles for the rest of the world for no reason.
Right. No, but all of these men coming in here, they are, you could argue, right? Yes, they're military age. They are prime working age for people who are looking for jobs and opportunities, right? But let's talk about the idea about this, right? These aren't the same people coming across the Atlantic Ocean, processing their way through Ellis Island, wanting to be here, wanting to contribute, wanting to build a new society. These are people coming in for handouts. Watch this video of this Venezuelan guy
Oh,
recently who was telling people about
he was
squatters' rights.
he was tailor made for
Yeah,
guys like us to have a talking point, right? What a
absolutely.
moron! But he comes out of a socialist country. What do you expect? And he gets
Yeah.
here. I've been following the squatters thing. Like
Hmm.
a friend of mine who was a left wing flake moved to Amsterdam when we were in our 20s years ago. And I was like, where are you living? He's like, I'm living on this beautiful house on one of the canals. I'm like, how? Oh,
Hmm.
we're squatting. It's like, excuse me. Like, it was a whole cultural thing there that they would invade this lovely home. And as long as like they took it as shifts, so someone was always there, right?
Yeah.
And he just did this. He thought this was funny. And and DeSantis just signed a law yesterday in Florida. Like, enough of this shit. If it's not your property and you're found on it, we're coming to take you. Enough of
Yeah,
this crap of the police
just
showing
makes
up and
sense.
saying it's a civil issue. It's not a civil issue. It's breaking and entering, and it's trespass. We're
Right.
gonna haul your ass out. And
Yeah.
how? But what I'm fascinated. I'd love it if you have any insight.
Hmm.
What was the process in each of 50 legislatures where someone said, you know what we need? We
As
need a
far as rights,
law that lets someone walk into someone's house and fucking take it. Who proposed that bill? What was the? I'd love to see the minutes of the debate, and I'd love to see the vote, and I'd love to ask them why.
you know,
Why is this a law on the books?
these are the same people who want to get rid of Columbus Day because he showed up someplace where people already lived and took it over, you know? So now we're talking about mental gymnastics, right?
Yeah,
So it's crazy because I live outside the United States in California, as we've talked about in
right,
California. And if I had a shed in my backyard and somebody moved into it and it became their home, I in no way, shape, or form could legally remove them from my backyard where my children play,
right.
and they would be allowed to live there. And that's fucking crazy
Of
that
course, it's
somebody,
crazy.
yeah, that somebody
Yeah,
legislated it and made it into a law, and now people can do that. And it happens out here in California. Thankfully, I don't have to deal with it, and knock on wood that I never have to deal with it, right? But no,
but
it's
the craziness is the same asshole. If he walked into your shed or your barn or your house while
mhm.
you were there and you shot him, he would
Oh
just
yeah.
they take the corpse away because he's attacking you. But he shows
Hmm.
up because you're not home and it's okay.
Yep.
It's bizarre.
It is weird. It's some sort of, naive, liberal way of thinking, thinking that human beings are, I mean, I'm sorry, like I do think that most people are inherently good, but there are plenty of people who are not inherently good, right? So, but it just goes back to my idea, this conversation we like to have sometimes on our podcast is what does it mean to be a citizen,
Yeah.
right? There's a great podcast out there by a guy, his name is Dan Holloway. It's called Citizen Podcast. Ironically, he's also on another one called Drinking Bros. But the name or the
Two very, very closely related issues.
absolutely, yes.
Yeah,
But his whatever you want to call it, slogan for Citizen Podcast is we all know our rights, so let's talk about our obligations.
right.
And
They
I
don't exist
absolutely
in a
think
vacuum. You don't just get rights as an adult. As a child, you
exactly.
get rights.
Right. Yeah, and when you walk across an imaginary line on the ground, like a border, right? And it matters, it's not imaginary. You can't see it. That's what I mean when I say imaginary. You don't automatically just get all of these things, right? Um, at Jamestown, if you didn't work, you didn't eat. And that's, the obligation of being a part of a society in a very basic level, right?
Yep.
And so I do think that, you don't get to just show up here and automatically get the things that I get as a citizen.
Not under a
And
rational administration, you
no,
do.
right. And it's when being a citizen means less and less and less, you see the total and absolute deprecation of a society. There's no benefit to being a citizen. There's no
No.
benefit to working. There's no benefit to contribution. Um, and people don't seem to understand anymore that where you invite the government to insert itself is also you creating the opportunity for you to lose personal freedom. And that is a scary thing. And so these people wanting to have all of these people flood our country, they're trying to offer them green cards. They're going to be counted towards the census for all these states, and a lot of them are going to these sanctuary cities, which of course are
Yep.
liberally led, and they're going to wind up with more seats, and they're going to wind up being able to vote and keep these people here longer, right? So this is, I think, it's a plan. I don't think it's arbitrary.
Oh,
I
it's
think that's the
completely a
plan.
plan. And what Mike, someone was asking me the other day, why do they do this? And my contention has been that leftists are perpetually children. Because
Hmm.
in a child's mentality, there's always an adult who's going to clean up the nursery room after I throw my toys around.
Yep.
They don't seem to get they're the adults now. And there's no one to fix this when you screw it up. The American Marxist left, pardon the triple redundancy, um, Democrat left,
Nice.
they were epitomized
Mm-hmm.
First off, I watched 4 sentences of the State of the Disunion and I had to turn it off. Right?
I didn't
You
even
live in
watch
a
it.
fantasy world. There was an insurrection on January 6th. There was a pandemic. Like the country used to be divided along ideas of rights of workers versus rights of capital, but these were debates that accepted reality first and then
Mm-hmm.
argued about how to deal with reality. We now live in a world where at least half the nation lives in a fantasy world that doesn't exist. They live in a world
Absolutely.
where there was a pandemic that required shutting schools and everyone needed to take a non-vaccine and masks worked even though they didn't, and January 6th was an insurrection instead of a protest. Like they live in an alternative universe.
Yes.
And listening to
Absolutely.
Biden triple down on the idea that Republicans are the new Confederacy, they apparently want the Civil War. I'm not quite sure what the dividing lines in this war would be in their minds, but all that
Well,
madness aside,
mm-hmm.
coming back to this particular issue. So, a criminal who's now an illegal alien here
Mm-hmm.
murders a young woman.
Yes. Lincoln
Biden makes
Riley.
reference to him as an illegal.
Right.
The
Oh
Democrats'
yeah.
complaint is how he's referred to.
Correct.
He
Oh, it's just like,
murdered a young woman.
yep.
He's not supposed to be here. And they're busy from Pelosi on down going on TV saying, well, it's not right to call him illegal. That's what you're concerned about. Every
Yes.
American just needs to bear that in mind when they go vote in November.
Yeah.
A young American woman was murdered by a man who was in this country illegally by breaking our laws, and all the Democrats care about is how you refer to this poor man.
Yeah. And
That
what was it?
describes
Either
them to a
yesterday.
T.
Exactly. And either yesterday or the day before was the 1 year anniversary of that trans person going into that school and shooting and killing people
Right,
and killing kids, right? And again, there was the same thing. We were more concerned about what pronouns they were going to use to reference this person than they
right.
were about the situation itself, which
Yep.
is absolutely bonkers. And what's even crazier is people see that and they hear that and they co-sign on it and they're like, "Yep, that's right. That's the way I should be thinking." It's scary. It is
Terrifying.
scary. I feel like you're walking around and you don't know who's a zombie and who isn't, honestly. And I'll tell you what, man, the media has been really good about dividing this country. I really feel like this whole uniparty idea is in a cold civil war with the American people. They do everything they can. They're the self-licking ice cream cone, right, to keep
Mhm.
themselves in power.
Oh, yeah.
In the meantime, keeping us arguing with one another, getting people to think all these Marxist ideas because that's what they are, right?
Yep.
And really, they're just at war with us in a way to keep us down so they can just keep doing what they're doing. And thankfully, there are people out there waking up. I think that the severely poor job that Joe Biden has done and Kamala Harris have done, it has woken up a lot of people and realized like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have done this. And
Hopefully
voted for this
enough.
person.
Hopefully enough to
Hopefully enough.
overcome the thousands and hundreds of thousands, not millions of mail-in ballots that Democrat interns have been filling out since 3 years ago. Hopefully that's enough to overcome it because it's madness. I mean,
It is.
our ally, back to Israel, our ally is attacked by lunatics who commit gang rape, mass murder,
Yeah.
torture, and hostage taking. And the vice president went on TV 3 days ago to say, well, we really don't think that the IDF should go into Rafah. Well, Hamas decided to use the Palestinian people as human shields, and that's where they're hiding. I don't recall anyone complaining to the Allies before they stormed the beaches of Normandy. Can you tell us about the plan you
Dresden
have to
bombings.
protect the civilians in France?
Right.
Like your government started a war. This is called blowback, bitch. Like you want a ceasefire? It's open to you at any second.
Yeah. And I think the last
Surrender
time,
and give us the hostages, and you got your ceasefire.
right.
Done. And the fact that the American left who are setting world speed records for idiocy. I went on a
For sure.
blistering tear after the circle jerk called the what the hell is Hollywood idiots called? Fucking Academy Awards, where all these
Yes.
idiots are wearing a pin
Jimmy
that
Kimmel.
commemorates the lynching of two Jews in Ramallah in 2000. That's what that pin represents. And these, either they're too stupid to know that, or
Mhm.
they know it and don't care. And this is the cause du jour. It is it is a testament to how powerful the left has become in this country and
It
how
is.
badly we need to root them out, like slapping iron on ticks.
No, it's true, man. I was just gonna say about what you were referencing is that they do the media, the left, they do a very, very good job of co-opting things from the past and turning them into something else. And people just look at the headline or they look at whatever 20-second clip is on their screen, and that becomes the truth, right? We used to have a name back in the day for fake news. It's called yellow journalism, which you
I,
probably are very familiar with,
I,
right? The term yellow journalism,
yeah,
and that's gone now, right? It doesn't matter. And the scare, and this is kind of off topic but also on topic at the same time. It's scary too how much news is just online, because if you went back, and this is the 1960s, in the Kansas City Star printed news, you would have real journalists out there doing it, and then eventually this all just becomes, you'll see these articles printed in paper, and it's just, from the Washington Post to the New York Times. Back in the day when you were printing news on paper, there was accountability, because you couldn't just go back and
yeah,
eradicate all 500,000 newspapers, right?
right,
You could print it
exactly.
off and cut it out and have it. Now you go online and you read all your news. It takes little effort to go and change all of this, right? And
Yep,
and maybe you don't even know the article was changed, and you wouldn't know the article
you
was
wouldn't
changed.
know.
So I say that to say that it's a that's just another tactic of rewriting history and creating a narrative. Because how many times have you seen something on the news and maybe some time passes and you go to Google and you try to find the article you read and you can no longer find it?
Yep.
That's happened to me quite a bit. And so they are. It's just like this cleaning house all the time as well, and creating this picture. Um, and it is it's a liberal controlled media. I don't care what anybody says. It's a fact.
Oh
And I
God,
do
yeah.
again think a lot of people are realizing that, but not enough at the moment, I guess.
Hopefully it gets better and better. Well, it's a bit of an echo chamber. Luckily,
Very
living in
much.
America, having left New York, um, frankly, people are they're a lot more rational and
Hmm.
grounded than the chattering shit you see on YouTube or anywhere else, right?
Sure.
And so that gives me hope because they're not listening to any of these idiots. I mean, they don't buy any of it. I do
Hmm.
recall one of the weirdest moments. My wife and I, luckily, we both saw it. This was back in, oh God, I think 99,
Hmm.
98 or 99. We lived in New York and we were watching the news. And so out on Long Island in Hempstead, this town out there, a lot of industrial activity. It had been partially a munitions factory during World War II. They had
Hmm.
been there, and there was this article on the news. We're watching, not article, watching the news
Right.
on site in Hempstead. Woman reporter is talking about the fact that they've just uncovered like nuclear waste beneath Hempstead, right?
Crazy.
Like horrendous toxic nightmare. You
Right.
know, details at 11, right? It was a teaser in the afternoon. So we were like, wow, like that was right near where we grew up. There's a huge incidence of
Crazy.
breast cancer on Long Island.
Oh,
So
wow.
we made sure in the days, think of this, we're gonna tune in at 11. Silence. Never covered again. I've tried
Hmm.
to find evidence of that, and we've looked at each other occasionally like, are we insane? We
Right.
both saw that, right?
Hmm.
Gone,
Yeah.
gone,
Yeah.
buried, nothing, zero, nothing at all.
And how many other instances like that are there? You'll never
Millions.
know. Yeah.
Because the people there is, having dealt with this issue particularly on a couple of projects I worked on, there should be a kind of a grand jury like selection through which all attempts to stamp something top secret must go. Because the
Hmm.
reason being is I've seen a bunch of top secret crap. Who could care, right?
Hmm.
99% of it is a politician covering his or her ass because you stamp it top secret, it's hidden for 50 years.
Right.
Like that's why they use it, not
Hmm.
because it's critical to national security. It's critical to protect their their asses from
Yeah,
accountability.
no
Um,
doubt.
I've finally been working on this book about the federal budget for a while, and it's probably going to come out next week. I'm finishing the final drafts
Awesome.
today, and it's amazing to me, and hopefully it's useful to people because what I realized in the writing of all this, in which many people who interface with the government do understand, is that the political class depends upon making things simultaneously wildly boring and
Hmm.
insanely complex. They want you to just look away,
Yeah.
right? They just want it to be so dull
Hmm.
and so complicated that people be like, oh, I'll watch the Raiders game, right? And the problem with it
Yeah.
is the administrative state has metastasized, and you've got
Hmm.
Chevron deference means that unelected bureaucrats make rules which have the force of law all day long, and they can throw any single American in prison anytime they want.
That's scary.
Not an exaggeration. If they want to
Yep.
put you in jail, they will find a reason to do so.
Yeah.
And all of that vast detritus has first off got to be recognized, and enough people have to care to vote about it, and it's all got to be cleared away. And otherwise, people are dramatic about this election, but it's probably true because the pack of commies, running Biden, want to turn this into a Marxist hellhole, and it's
Yeah.
possible. Plenty of other countries have been turned into Marxist hellholes, so they want to try, and they're trying hard, and they're doing everything they can. So if the Republicans don't win, and or if they don't follow through on the necessary changes, we're in a really bad road right now. We
Yeah.
are $65 trillion in debt. That's got to be paid for. And instead, our politicians are in the bottom of this hole and they're digging faster than ever,
Yep.
which
Set
is
down
the
the
best way
shovel.
to turn us into a commie dictatorship. Look, it's a nightmare. Capitalism didn't work. We have to now have the People's Republic of blah blah blah, and we're going
Right.
to dole out jobs, and we're going to let you what to have, and have a bug for dinner. And they are hell bent on getting it done. It's terrifying.
Yeah. No, it is. Um, this is just another talking point to segue into the whole TikTok bill, right? That thing going on. This
Yeah,
is the Patriot Act 2.0,
yeah.
right?
We're going to
And
silence a social media platform. Great
right.
idea.
It's like when we have these conversations, people don't seem to realize that it's not good having an appointed, right? Not even voted for, an appointed set of people making decisions on what you can and can't talk about. It doesn't matter if they're on the right or the left. If
Nope.
somebody is telling you what you can and can't talk about, they are not your friend at
No.
all. If they're spying on you, your rights don't matter to them. This is basic logic, right? But you vote for it, right? Because they create a boogeyman. And don't get me wrong, China is our enemy,
Yeah,
100%, right? But the American companies do the same shit
yeah.
to you
But
on
what's great about
Facebook
it
or
is the whole
whatever.
China's collecting our data thing
Right.
presupposes a degree of competence on behalf of the Chinese that would mean
Sure.
they're doing something with this vast sea of data.
Yeah.
And what
Right.
are they doing? Predominantly, it's advertising. It's the
Well,
whole thing is madness.
it is.
People, if before right before around the internet was started, if the Congress had tried to pass a law demanding that people give up all of their private information, there would have been a revolution.
Hmm.
Instead, everyone just gives it up. I remember I never went on Facebook because I left because I don't like cat videos and I'm happily married, so I'm not stalking exes. So why should I bother? Um,
Facebook is dumb.
our Facebook is dumb, sure it is, but I did look at it for a commercial purpose once, but I discovered like they're demanding that I provide like my birthday. Bite me. I'm not giving you
Yeah.
identifying information. No. How about
Hmm.
that? Uh, LinkedIn has gotten into the game too, where
Oh
they
yeah.
started demanding that you have to provide your ID. But we're not keeping it. We're not checking. It's a third party. You don't
Hmm.
you don't need my fucking identification for anything except to
Right.
take my data. I don't need to tell you shit. I'm putting my profile up. If I say my name is Genghis Khan and I rule the Golden Horde, well, buyer beware. If anyone believes that, that's their
Right.
problem, right?
Caveat emptor. Yeah.
Caveat emptor. I'm who I
Yeah.
say I am, and I am the the glorious leader of the Golden Horde, and bleh.
Well, you say this, and I'm sure you are aware of seeing on the news that there's several states where you can't access Pornhub.com,
Right.
and they want you to identify your age and who you are. The funny thing I find about that is the company that's collecting this information is a
Yep.
Canadian company. It's not
Fabulous.
even an American company. Right?
Fabulous.
Not that that makes it that much better, but
No.
it definitely makes it worse that it's not even a group of Americans.
Right.
Since when do I have to give my fucking information to a Canadian company, right? Yes, Pornhub is a Canadian website. I understand that. But
That's
I'm
funny. I had no
accessing it here
idea.
in the yeah, if I am wanting to go on this website in the United States, why should I have to give my information to a foreign country, right? These are things that's something that's going on too, right?
This
And so
that's really
these people
funny.
are
Are
voting
they
for it.
trying to tell us that porn is only okay with a Canadian accent? I haven't.
I don't know,
That's
horny.
rough. Oh
Yeah.
Christ. What's what's most pressing? What do you need people? What is the thing that's most worrying that people should be paying attention to? Because again, your
Hmm.
political overlords rely upon our apathy. They
Yeah.
rely upon us not paying attention. What for you is the most helpful antidote to that, so that you keep your eyes
Ooh.
open and pay attention to what these sleaze weasels are up to?
I think that's the most important thing I would tell for people is to realize that who you are as an American is being watered down, and it's being made out to be something that's not special. It's being made out to be something that isn't unique.
Hmm.
Because who being an Amer what being an American is comes with a certain amount of rights, privileges, ideas, and when you water that down like they're doing, you don't matter anymore. Somebody who walks across the border into this country who hasn't contributed, you've spent your whole life here, your parents spent their whole life here, maybe you worked, maybe you're in the military, all these things. Your government is telling you you are not important anymore. These
Hmm.
people coming in here are just as or more important than you. And understand that your freedoms are directly tied to how much you give the government permission to do things, right? So
Hmm.
if you want to keep the government out and you want to help keep the government small in a way that you can actually action, find what the government is doing where you're at locally, figure out how to do it on your own, do it better, and box the assholes out so they can't do it for you, right?
Yep.
If you do all of this in your community, I feel like, right, if all of us did that, and this is a pipe dream for sure, right? Because I think we're very far gone. But understand that who you are as an American is being watered down on purpose. That the more you give the government, the less freedom you have, and that freedom doesn't mean that you just get to be and do what you want, right? A lion in a zoo can wander around all day, it's fed all day, but it's still in a zoo. Being
Yep.
free comes with an element of self-reliance, and it comes with an element of community, and it comes with an element of obligation. And you have to understand and realize that before all of it is taken away from you and you live in an absolute and total police state. And I'll say this one more thing, don't don't let the police state happen by becoming the police state yourself. Okay. Is that's something that they're really, really good at. And
Yep.
I think that social media has done a very good job at propping up. But anyway, understand what it means to be an American. Read the Constitution, understand what that means. Protect your rights. They're inherent to you. The government doesn't give them to you. You were born with them, and you
Well,
maintain them by being a citizen of this country. That's what that means. So,
that's perfectly put. I would just add one tiny thing, which you touched on, is as the government will come and take everything it can,
mhm.
whether you're voluntarily giving it or not. So fight
Right.
it. Don't let
Yep.
them take from you what they want to take,
Absolutely.
which is everything. They want to
Yeah.
control every aspect of your life, from your
A
light
big,
bulb to the car you drive, to how much
yeah.
power you use, to what you eat. And they're insane. And they have no
Yeah.
greater plan beyond social disruption and Marxist control. They have not thought
Absolutely.
beyond it because they're too stupid to. They just think it all sounds good. But well,
Definitely.
Brandon, thank you for taking the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for
I
having
would
me.
say to my normal listener, normal, my usual listeners,
Yeah.
thing, turn off the mainstream media who are lying to you and tune into Messy Times.
Absolutely.